Ah, yes, the NFL draft. You remember that happened a few months ago? Yeah, I was supposed to do a bunch of videos about it. Well, it's starting back up, damn it. Better late than never. Isn't that exciting? It is to me a little bit. Feels good to get caught back up. But anyway, since the draft is well in the books now, I've had some time to reflect upon it, I feel like I can talk about some winners and losers. And, the great thing about this is of course, is you're going to look back in a couple of years and some of these are going to be spot on the money, both the winners and the losers. The losers I'll actually cover in a separate video. And the winners and losers, some of them, you'll look at them and say, God, you're an idiot, you stupid ass. And you'll also be absolutely right. It is a crapshoot, it is a grab bag, and everybody damn good and well knows it. But in this video, I'm going to talk about who I thought were the biggest winners from the 2019 NFL Draft. In the next video on this channel, stay tuned for that one, I'm going to talk about the biggest draft losers, and shouldn't that be fun? All right, so anyways, let's count this down for the biggest draft winners. I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you guys can flame away in the comments at me and tell me how much of an idiot I am. I look forward to it. Number 5, the Cleveland Browns. They didn't have a lot of picks this time, and they didn't need them. They needed a difference maker on the offensive side of the ball. They needed a dude. And they took their first and third round picks, and they went and got themselves a dude in Odell Beckham Jr. You get a young franchise potential quarterback in Baker Mayfield. You've got infrastructure in place already with Nick Chubb in the backfield. You've got David Njoku at tight end. You've got Jarvis Landry at wide receiver. But you really needed a game changer, a true game breaker. And Odell Beckham Jr. is that. And when that type of guy comes available in the marketplace, you have to do it because the chances of the first and or third round picks are even combined, equaling the production and impact of an Odell Beckham Jr. are about slim and damn none. OBJ is a special player. And the Browns were in a position where it didn't need to just be about draft picks at this point. Especially if you feel like you've got your quarterback for a long time, you needed impact and you needed impact now. And I applaud them for going out there, being aggressive. This opportunity presented itself, and by God, they made it happen. They made it happen as they should have. And then even turning around to round 2 and being able to get a long corner like Greedy Williams, a guy that slipped a little bit in the draft. Looking at him, those are the types of guys you want to gamble in the second round because there were some first-round traits and characteristics there. And you might be able to get him to coach him up and get him to play like first-round guys. But primarily, the OBJ trade puts the Cleveland Browns at number 5 on my list. Number 4, the Oakland Raiders. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about Cleveland Farrell going number 4 and it being a reach because it was a reach. And I know there are quite a number of people that are going to look at the 3 first-round picks they had and say you had Farrell, you had Josh Jacobs, and you had Jonathan Abram, and you just don't feel like you see a bunch of true impact, a bunch of real difference makers there. And you could very well be right. But when Mike Mayock was talking about trying to change the culture of the organization, these guys feel like culture changers. Farrell, coming from the national championship Clemson team. Jacobs, coming from a previous national championship Alabama team. Jonathan Abram, a hard-hitting physical type of guy that played in the SEC. You look at these 3 guys and you say, they're not going to solve everything. They're not the be-all, end-all. But I don't look at any of these 3 guys as having bust potential. Farrell at pick 4 was a reach. But, to be fair, if he ends up being a solid long-term pro, it's not that bad of a bust unless somebody drafted close to him ends up being a Hall of Famer. Now, you could say, what happens if Josh Allen is better than Jacksonville than Farrell is in Oakland? And that's a fair question and debate we'll probably have for years. But the fact is they needed to avoid any misses with their first 3 picks. And I don't think they had any misses with their first 3 picks. And then when you factor in that they traded, a 3rd and 5th round pick from this draft to go get Antonio Brown, a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. I mean, when you add that into the draft class, and I think you absolutely have to factor in those draft picks that were traded to get a guy, an established superstar, elite player like Antonio Brown, I do feel like that makes the Raiders winners. Doesn't put them at number 1, but they belong in the conversation in the top 5. Number 3, the Denver Broncos. They were able to get a top 10 talent, in my estimation, in this draft, and Noah Fant, the tight end from Iowa. Not only did they get him, but instead of taking him at number 10 where they originally were, they were able to trade back with Pittsburgh to pick 20, get a second-round pick in the 2019 draft, and then also get a second-round pick in the 2020 draft. You got a top 10 player, we're able to pay him less by moving down 10 spots, and you got 2 additional second-round picks out of the deal. That's really damn good work if you could do it, especially when you turn around and look at the fact that in the second round, a guy that a lot of people were thinking they might take in round 1 and Drew Lock, the quarterback from Missouri, they end up getting in round number 2. This is kind of like one of those things like a few years back when the Jaguars took Jalen Ramsey at 5 and you come back around in the second round and there's frickin' Myles Jack sitting there. 2 guys that in theory should have been top 5 players, top 5 picks in that draft. They were able to get Myles Jack in round 2. It feels like that a little bit with the Broncos here in terms of, while I'm not a huge Drew Lock fan, 'tis much better based off of what happened to invest a second round pick on him. They have to invest the 10th overall pick, especially when you can take that 10th overall pick, bump down 10 spots, still get a top 10 player in Noah Fant, and get 2 other second-round picks. And I really like the Draymond Jones pick in the 3rd round, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. I like this draft for the Broncos. They got some immediate impact now. They got something potentially for the future, and they got some additional draft pick capital just to move down a few spots in round number 1. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills. I liked Ed Oliver for them at number 9 quite a bit. Potentially a disruptive interior presence on that defensive line that they needed. You look at round 2, Cody Ford, the offensive lineman from Oklahoma. I think this dude was slept on a little bit in the draft process. I have confidence he's going to come in there and be a long-time starter on that offensive line. And when you look at the Bills and you look at what ultimately is going to determine their success or failure long-term, it is going to be the development of Josh Allen. So you couldn't really pass up on Ed Oliver at number 9. I get that. Not ideal. You would like to have a guy like that, but have him be on the offensive side of the ball. So that way you could directly support your young quarterback. But once you took Ed Oliver at 9, which was kind of an argument to be made about best player available, then you come back the next 3 picks, you take Cody Ford, you take Devin Singletary, and then you take Dawson Knox. You're surrounding your young quarterback with some help. Singletary and Knox, some weapons for Josh Allen to work with. Cody Ford to provide some additional protection for your young quarterback. You really got to like, in my opinion, what the Bills did here. Weren't a bunch of trades, weren't a bunch of moves. It was just taking good, solid, sensible players in each of the first 3 rounds. But ironically enough, my number 1 winners are the Washington Redskins. This sounds crazy to say. But all this talk leading up to the draft that Bruce Allen and Daniel Snyder had taken over the war room for the Redskins, all this talk about they were going to potentially trade up into the top 5 and they were targeting Drew Haskins, it didn't happen. They stayed put, let the draft play out, understood kind of the lay of the land, and when it got to pick 15, they ultimately got their damn guy in Dwayne Haskins. And as long as their next head coach, Kevin O'Connell, signed off on it, then they'll be happy with this. This is right. I know Jay Gruden is their head coach now. I said their next head coach, Kevin O'Connell. Isn't that crazy to think about him being a head coach already in the league? Anyways, Dwayne Haskins at 15. He needs some work, but he definitely has some tools to be a long-time starter in the league, and the Redskins really need that because the Alex Smith experience ended up being a failure. You invested a bunch of money into an average quarterback, and that didn't work out. Imagine that. And, of course, unfortunately for him, he got hurt and probably won't play in 2019. In the long term, you're going to need to move on from that cap figure anyways. Then to come back and trade back up into the late-end portion of round 1 to get Montez Sweat, get another impact edge rusher to go on the opposite side of Ryan Kerrigan was really good work. Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver from Ohio State, is one of those guys that you look at it and you say he was a guy that was maybe handcuffed and impaired by the system he played in a little bit. It may end up being a better pro than he was a college player. And for the Redskins, by God, they need help in their receiving core. McLaurin could come in and potentially contribute right away. And even when I look at Bryce Love in round number 4, questions about is AP going to come back and have another really good season? Is Darius Geis going to be fully recovered from knee injury? How's he going to look? This is a Bryce Love that wasn't the same player due to injury in 2018 at Stanford. But if you get 2017 Bryce Love, getting him in the 4th round is really damn good value. I look at the Redskins. They didn't trade up when they didn't need to. They stayed put, and they got their guy at 15. It was the right guy, the right fit. I love the Haskins pick for the Redskins. But then they got aggressive and went up and added another edge rusher to what looks like a really good front 7 of that Redskins defense and Montez Sweat. You look at that and you're like, man, that's something that a skilled front office might do. That's something that a front office run by people that know what the hell they're doing might actually do. Not a front office run by Bruce Allen. But nonetheless, they did it. I can't believe I'm saying this. And they'll probably make me look really bad in a couple of years. And maybe that's living out here in Virginia now. The fucking DMV bias with the Redskins is starting to seep in. I don't know. But the reality is I did really like what the Redskins did, and I thought it made them the biggest winners in the 2019 NFL Draft. You, of course, can let me know how wrong I am or how right I am. Either is appreciated in the comment section below. Like I said, next video, I'm going to talk about the biggest losers of the 2019 NFL Draft. Oh, I'm looking at you, Dave Gettleman.